Right now, across the country, massive pieces of new infrastructure are being built, like these huge train tunnels near Perth Airport.
Metronet is the biggest rail infrastructure program ever undertaken in Western Australia.
Metronet was planned well before the COVID-19 pandemic pushed the Australian economy into recession. But the West Australian government says now is the right time to be building.
What we've seen through the COVID pandemic is a loss of jobs in many industries, but with construction industry we've been able to keep those jobs going and keep employment in those vital industries.
The infrastructure has historically, over 100 years or more, been an integral part of the reaction of governments, whether it was in the Great Depression or any more localised or short-term economic problems. It's something governments have more or less at their fingertips.
With millions of Australians out of work, governments across the country are spending up on infrastructure in order to support jobs. The WA government is pushing for a high percentage of its infrastructure work to be done by local businesses, companies like Albeck Cranes.
Metronet allows us to basically retain the employment base that we have, as it's been quiet the last couple of months due to the COVID-19 uncertainty in the market. It is important for governments to focus on local supply. For one thing, it keeps us employed. But we also have the capability, the know-how and the quality already here in Australia.
According to new exclusive data, before the COVID crisis, state governments were planning to spend a combined $185 billion on infrastructure over the next 4 years. The federal government was planning to spend $100 billion over the next 10 years. Collectively, they've now promised a further $15.7 billion. But not everyone thinks it's money well spent.
I've got very strong reservations about an infrastructure or major infrastructure response to a recession.
Michael Keating was Secretary of the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet at the time of Australia's last recession in 1991. Then, like now, the government wanted to ramp up infrastructure spending to stimulate the economy.
Premiers swore on stacks of Bibles that every project was shovel-ready, and some of them didn't start for another 3 years. The most likely thing is there'll be budget overruns and there'll be delays.
A difference between this recession and the 90s recession is other players keen to spend on infrastructure. The new Brisbane Airport runway has just opened. It took 8 years and $1.3 billion to build. But this investment has come from Australia's pool of superannuation.
In the industry funds, over the next 3 years, we've got plans to invest about $19.5 billion, and we think that'll create 200,000 jobs over that period. And so that's a demonstration of what can be achieved.
IFM Investors is owned by Australia's industry super funds. It owns Brisbane Airport and the port next door. The assets might look underused at present, but the investors say they're not worried about the short term.
Super funds are long-term investors, and when we invest in infrastructure, we intend holding those assets and manage them professionally for 20, 30, 40, 50 years or longer. And so we're natural partners with governments for that reason.
Super funds have usually bought existing infrastructure. Greg Combay says he now wants to use members' money to build new projects, but he says governments need to get the settings right.
We're needing to invest to achieve economic recovery, and not just government investment, but mobilising private investment. It requires national leadership to identify the projects and to bring them to market.
If I was a director, I'd rather buy an existing project where there's no cost overrun and I'll pay the price consistent with getting a return on my money.
The federal government has announced injections of cash into multiple projects across the country, including $5.25 billion to help build a train line to the new Western Sydney Airport. While big projects get attention, less glamorous projects might represent better value for limited money.
smaller, more labour-intensive projects tend to be the best, although in practice you'll inevitably get a combination from projects at 10 million through to projects at 10 billion.
And even before spending more money on big ticket items, there's ways to make the existing infrastructure work more efficiently.
I think even in the days of a national cabinet, some of those are very, very tough political things to deliver. And I don't think that will change, especially things like congestion taxes, road pricing, which make sense.
How can you say you've got an infrastructure deficit when you don't properly charge for it? We've got a deficit of free alcohol as far as I'm concerned, or free entertainment. You know, there's lots of deficits if you didn't charge for it.
Hi, I'm Lee Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 730's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.